They have been destabilizing that country for many years because they want those minerals in the DRC to steal directly from DRC and leave. There's nothing revolutionary about M23.
The people that are fighting as M23 are of Tutsi stock, but they are Congolese. They come from around Kivu. So the M23 was formed deliberately because the people who are then christened as the Banyamulenge thought that they were being discriminated against. The Congolese administration in Kinshasa was telling them to go to Rwanda.
There's a rejection of African standby force by the imperialist forces in the West because they benefit out of the instability of DRC and Africa in particular. If there is any country that was messed up right from the beginning, was DRC. They have been destabilizing that country for many years because they want those minerals in the DRC. They even created illegal landing strips to land in DRC, to steal directly from DRC and leave. There's nothing revolutionary about M23. Yes, we understand the dynamics of those who are found in that region and the leadership of DRC ill-treating them. But what is important is we cannot allow black-on-black violence. In whose interest is that? Why do you take up arms to kill other fellow Africans? So we should first stabilize DRC and support the SADC initiatives and support the UN intervention, because the stability of DRC means the stability of SADC, and the stability of SADC means the stability of our continent. So we should be concerned that there are problems in the DRC, and before they come to us, they have to be stopped in DRC. You don't wait for them to come to you for you to realize we have a problem. If they can do it in DRC, that will become a practice. And the African agenda is such that we have to go and help the people of DRC. But we must not do that to our own detriment. We have to deploy the best capacity we have. And if we don't have, let's confess we don't have it and withdraw. We may have the interest to defend, but we may not have the capacity. But children are going to die. Somebody's children are going to die, not only these ones. If you had shot 9 American soldiers with that madness which is in the presidents of America now, they would have flattened you the following day. No one would have played jokes. People are playing jokes with the lives of our brothers, and we must not allow that. If they can't give them equipment, let them come back. They were, the death before this one, the soldiers were telling me that there were actually 2 military helicopters in their base, but there is no pilot to fly those helicopters. The first and the last time they flew there, that's when they were taking them there. You've got some bit of air power, but you don't use it because there is just no capacity. So someone is sleeping, and what makes matters worse, they take Mom Angie to become a minister of defense after being a minister of sinkholes. I mean, this sinkhole started during her time. Now she's sinking the army now, after sinking Relebohile.
The Congo Free State, as we know it today, was established by King Leopold of the Belgians. And we will also remember that it's the same King Leopold of the Belgians who was the force behind the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885, during which the current boundaries that we know of African states were established. So the original sin in terms of the conflict that we see in DRC today was planted in those days. And it is important to have that history for us to appreciate what is now known as the conflict that is pitting Congo. Some say that the Rwandese are involved because the people that are fighting as M23 are of Tutsi stock, but they are Congolese. They come from around Kivu. The fact that a boundary was drawn by the colonialists and put them in a country that is now known as DRC, at one time was known as Zaire or Congo-Kinshasa, does not make them Rwandese. So the M23 was formed deliberately because the people who are then christened as the Banyamulenge thought that they were being discriminated against. They thought that the Congolese administration in Kinshasa was telling them to go to Rwanda, which is not their country. And this is something that has been debated over time. In 1996, when the country was still known as Zaire, the former president of Tanzania, the late Julius Kambarage Nyerere, in 1996, when delivering a speech in New York under the Peace Academy, said that we must be very clear that the Banyamulenge are not Rwandese. The Banyamulenge or the Tutsi who are to be found or who are found in Kivu are Congolese. Because the colonialist border put them in DRC, Congo, and some in Tutsi, does not make them Rwandese. So the M23 was created deliberately for the purpose of protecting the interests of the Tutsis who are Congolese citizens. However, it must be understood that there have been accusations and counter-accusations, with the administration in Kinshasa saying that the Rwanda administration is aiding the M23. Rwanda, on her part, has said that because the war spills over into Rwanda occasionally, they are always on a defensive and sometimes in an offensive mode. And you will remember that when Felix Tshisekedi took over power, there was a time indeed when he visited Kigali and gave the Rwandese the right to move into the territory of Congo to deal with other rebel groups which were a threat to Rwanda, in the same way that he also did to the Ugandans. The fallout now is that diplomatically there is now a problem between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the accusations are that the Rwandese administration is using M23 to destabilize DRC and also to take resources. But I believe that if we are to look at the issue in an objective manner, this is not the time to apportion blame. This is the time to ask ourselves, how can we stabilize that area? And that will require, among other things, that all the combatants are called to a round table. The argument, for example, that comes from the Kinshasa administration that they cannot have a face-to-face meeting with M23 is without merit, because it is the M23 who are on the ground, and they are an organized force with a clear chain of command. Even if it is true that the Rwanda government has given them logistical support, that does not take away the fact that they are organized and that they say they are Congolese. And we will remember that numerous attempts have been made to stabilize DRC. Numerous attempts when it was still called Zaire, numerous attempts when it changed its name to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and there have been peace initiatives, the most prominent of which has been the peace initiative by President João Lourenço of Angola, which appears to have faltered. There was also the Nairobi peace initiative, and we will remember that at one time all the East African countries did sanction an African force to go and help the Congolese administration, and they expelled the East African force and invited SADC. It must be remembered that DRC is a member of 2 regional organizations, perhaps even 3. but the most prominent are that they are members of the East African Community and members of SADC. And as we speak now in the year 2025, it is the SADC forces that are prominent in that area. Internationally, we also have the UN, MONUSCO, which has been there for a very long time. And this is not the first time that M23 have actually invaded Goma and occupied Goma. There was a time when they did, but the things have escalated in a manner that was unprecedented, with the consequence that the Kinshasa administration severed diplomatic ties and asked that the Rwandese ambassador winds up their diplomatic activities within 48 hours. It is in that context that the Kenyan President William Ruto, who is the current chair of the East African Community, then said, let us have an urgent meeting in order to resolve the problem. But from where I sit, such an urgent meeting will only be to stabilize and possibly call for a truce. But we've got to look at the long-term issues. I know others outside of the continent have also offered to mediate. President Erdogan of Turkey did offer to mediate, and that was immediately dismissed by the Congolese, which begs the question, how do we deal with the Congo problem in the context of the combatants who are present and who have demonstrated that they have sufficient firepower to overwhelm the Congolese forces? We talk much more about M23 and also talk about Banyamulenge, but remember that researchers tell us that there are anything between 100 and 120 armed groups, some of which are mercenaries and are involved with miners from different parts of the world. So that even if you negotiated with M23, what do you do with the other armed forces? From where I sit, and there are people who share the view that I take, you need a thorough examination of the situation in Congo. You need to have a conference which is an all-party meeting to look at mediation of the conflict in a proper manner. And I am of the view that all heads of state in East Africa should congregate. All heads of state in SADC should congregate. And perhaps if the AU was a strong body, it is not. This would be done under the aegis of the AU, so that you don't have single mediators. In order to underscore the significance of the situation or the gravity of the situation, heads of state should do the initial heavy lifting, with certain guarantees being demanded of the parties involved.